This is the Decoding Obesity podcast, where we simplify, demystify, and decode obesity, helping you lose weight and feel great. Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Dr. Avishkar Sabharwal. So gear up for a fascinating journey through this ever-evolving field, and let's see what we find. And please remember that the thoughts and opinions on this podcast do not constitute medical advice. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info. Hello everyone, and welcome again to this part 2 of the 3-part series on intermittent fasting. I'm really excited to share a lot of data with you today. I will try and keep it as entertaining as possible and try not to bore you with too many details. Let's dive into this. There are a lot of studies that have already been conducted and are being conducted on intermittent fasting to see how it affects the overall metabolic profile. They looked at how intermittent fasting works for weight loss. They've looked at whether it's effective for insulin resistance, how it affects the cholesterol levels. They have looked at how it affects your cognition. I want to take a minute to talk about insulin resistance. As the name suggests, insulin resistance is seen when the body stops responding to the insulin that is being produced by the body. This leads to diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and has a lot of detrimental effects on the body, including an increased risk of cardiovascular disease. There was a study done in 2019 on alternate day fasting that basically found that insulin resistance was actually lower in individuals who did the intermittent fasting compared to just calorie restriction. And this was really interesting because the amount of calories that they were taking was essentially the same in both the groups, but the people who were on the alternate day fast actually had better insulin sensitivity. What this implies is that intermittent fasting may also be helpful in patients who are diabetics. I think everybody's going to be excited about this piece of information that I'm going to share with you now. There was a study in 2018 that looked at whether intermittent fasting helps in fat mass loss preferentially, and they did find actually that it may be beneficial for fat mass loss. There have been several other studies also looking at the same effects of intermittent fasting, and the results have been promising. Similar beneficial effects have also been seen on the body cholesterol levels. This means that people who are willing to try intermittent fasting may find benefit from it, not just weight loss, but also overall metabolic health. I think it is something definitely worth trying, provided it is done in a safe fashion and appropriate nutrition is followed along with the intermittent fasting. For people interested in knowing how intermittent fasting works, it essentially puts you in a state of ketosis. What I mean is your body starts preferentially using the stored fat as fuel instead of glucose. And what that does is that also has a beneficial effect on hunger. Not only does it lower your glucose, your insulin, but also improves your hunger. In fact, people who have done prolonged fasts often don't feel hungry, and that's primarily because of this ketosis kicking in. So there you have it. That's today's episode. And the next time, that is part 3 of this 3-part series, we'll talk about the types of fasting, how to fast properly, what are the things you need to watch out for. I think that's the most exciting part that everybody's looking forward to. And I'm going to share a little bit of my experience as well. Thank you for listening today, and see you next time. This podcast should not be used in any legal capacity whatsoever. The thoughts and opinions expressed on this podcast are solely of the host and his guests. They do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of any organization. And that brings us to the end of this show. Thank you so much for listening in. And please remember that the thoughts and opinions on this podcast do not constitute medical advice. Don't forget to visit our website, www.decodingobesity.com, for show notes and more info.